Thank you. And I have very strong feelings against this bill. And I know, and I don't want it to be in any way confused with the speakers themselves or the sponsor. You're carrying a bill and you believe in it, and I believe in opposing it. And I'm going to tell you why, because I spent a lot of years in the House, and this really is one of the bills that has scared me the most in my decade in the legislature. Because I think, unlike other bills where we at least knew what some of the consequences would be, this is unimaginable. And I think the first premise of this bill is it seeks to weed out bad teachers by assuming all teachers are bad. That's what it does. And understand something, it takes a sledgehammer to the teaching profession. And for a group that seems to believe in matrices and market evaluations, none of that seems to be in this bill. The only statistic I've heard about the teaching problem in Florida is a statistic that my friend from upstate said, well, 99% of the teachers are satisfactory, so we must have a teaching evaluation problem, because that couldn't be the case. So we've got to do something to change dramatically how we rate teachers. That's the only statistic I've heard. Now, on Ways and Means last week, I sent to all the members the Education Week Florida report. And I'll send it to anybody. I have a big poster of it if you want to see it also. And that's the one that says we're eighth. And last week I spoke about it in Ways and Means because I thought it was instructive. Nearly every member of the majority party, and if, by the way, none of you are ever put on hold in the governor's, when you call the governor, I have been, and even his answering machine, when you're on hold, references this ranking as being eighth in the nation. And I've heard it, and so that's what you use to say A+ has done a good thing, testing is working. That's what you use to justify the regiment you put the state under. Well, if you go to it, and I sent it to all of you last week when I spoke against this bill in Ways and Means, look at what it says and tell me why what it says justifies what we're doing today. We got 3 A's in accountability. What that meant was Education Week, which is a good source, says no other state in the union tests as much as we do. Now, testing isn't necessarily a good thing. You can weigh a malnourished dog 3 times a day and it will still be malnourished. But to the extent that you believe testing in and of itself is great, we got all A's on that. You know what else we got an A on? We got an A on pre-K, because we have a pre-K program, and that moved our average up. These are all the factors that we're looking at. We got an A in equity in K-12 achievement. And I'll tell you why we got an A in that. Because the FCAT has put such an emphasis on lowest performing students and moving them to minimal competence. In the 2 subjects we test in 3rd grade, we have had that increase. And I'm not denying that. That's accurate. We have made our organizing principle of the school system a minimal competence test that moves people to grade level. And we have had results in moving our worst students to grade level in 2 subjects. Are we celebrating about it? No, because if you look at K-12 achievement and status, we are still a D. Now, the statistic that anybody on higher ed knows as well as anyone, and Senator Thrasher and Senator Lynn served on that committee with me, we have watched every single university official come in and say Florida students are not ready. They're not ready when they arrive because of the remediation we have to do in their freshman years. And indeed, Education Week said in college readiness, we were an F. No state in the union is doing as poorly as we are in preparing our kids for college. By the way, you know what else we got an F in? Funding. It said we pay less per student than almost any other state. And for those of you that value the marketplace, we're getting what we pay for. It also had an entire section on the teaching profession. Accountability for quality. Do you know what we got? An A-. If you look at this Education Week report, it says the following very clearly. It says we are doing very well with our least performing kids in moving them to minimal competence or near minimal competence. But we are not funding our schools, and we're not preparing them for college, which is the problem Florida has right now. But it says our teachers are doing a good job, if not a great job. They got an A in that section. So the question I have is, why today is the answer to that problem an assumption that we've got to weed out bad teachers by assuming all of them are bad? What is the matrix you are going to rely on to tell me that this is justified, other than some assumption that because there are so many satisfactory teachers in our state, we must start getting rid of the ones that obviously aren't satisfactory? Where is that study? Where is that data? Now, by the way, the only other thing we got an F on really was funding. Could it be maybe we don't fund our schools? Could class sizes have something to do with it? Could all the other factors that affect a classroom? None of that seems to be considered, even though there is data on that. So my first argument against this bill is its entire premise is faulty and is not based in data or matrices or all the other things that the majority party says should guide education reform. Not a bit of it is. And if you go to that Education Week report, everything I said is right there, and you ought to. Now, the other problem with this plan, which I think is overly punitive to teachers, is that it bears no resemblance to the reality of what happens in schools. Now, I have 3 kids between under 11, so I have 3 kids in a public K-8 school. And they're all in the gifted program. And guess what? In the gifted program, you test into it. The school starts at 6 kids and ends in with about 20-something kids in that class. If you go through all the ways things happen in schools, math, geometry, you may start not knowing any geometry. How are you going to test that? How are you going to test foreign languages in Spanish 1? How are you going to test kids that come from Haiti, as they do in my community, and don't speak English on their first day? How are you going to do a pre-test for everything? And what the Commissioner of Education said was that he believed we would have a pre-test and an end-of-course test in every single course. And if we didn't, we just have to assume that the kids are like other kids somewhere else, and we'll judge them that way. Nobody has done this anywhere in the United States. In Hillsborough, where they did it, and where they do end-of-course exams, do you know what happened the first year? 3% of the teachers who got the merit pay were from the very worst schools in terms of the socioeconomic level of the kids who go there. 3%. 97% were in the more affluent schools. So that's what happens when you do merit pay and you don't consider any of the other factors of what the children show up with. That's what happened. In my own community, the zone schools, you put a teacher in that, they've got all sorts of issues with the population, which isn't just about money. It's about parental base. It's about poverty. It's about not having lots of things that other communities have. Those are things that we don't know how you're going to factor that in. In terms of the race to the top, and this I think is the folly of the argument that we're hearing all this time, is that we've got to do this for race to the top. We do not have to do this for race to the top. There is no requirement in race to the top that we do it this way. It says that you have to have some significant feature of performance pay, but you don't have to do what we're doing. And we're doing something that no other district has tried to do for a very good reason. It's impossible to do in any way that makes sense. The members, what is this bill going to do? When we pass this bill, every single teacher in the state of Florida will be told, you no longer can have tenure. You no longer can have a multi-year contract. Every single year, no matter what you do, you start over. It ends the teaching profession as we know it. And I have no earthly idea why the folks that claim our schools are soaring, the folks that claims we have made incredible advances, believe that the best way to improve our schools is to tell the teachers who have been responsible for those advances that we are now going to stop treating them as a profession. And I know a lot of you have kids in the school or grandchildren in the schools, but I will tell you this. Anyone who says, oh, I know plenty of teachers who are for this, you can count them on a hand. Every single teacher, whether they're a member of a union or not, believes this is dramatically going to change what they do for this reason. They no longer, if you get your way, will be just simply trying to teach and make kids soar. What they will be forced to do is figure out what's the best way to get a good review by going to a school that maybe has kids that come better equipped, or by not taking a course or a class or teaching something that poses a unique challenge that they had not previously dealt with. This will stifle the teaching profession in so many ways. I believe this is one of the worst bills I've ever seen, and I apologize for using such strong language, but I got 3 kids in the school system, and the teachers who teach them have talked to me, and they know what this bill does. And they are so worried that it will dramatically change how they teach. So while a lot of people have said this is unfair to teachers, I disagree with that. This is unfair to students who are going to have to be taught under a system that dramatically diminishes and disrespects a profession that we should be cherishing. I strongly oppose this bill in every way, and I think it is one of the greatest mistakes we'll ever make as a legislature in moving forward on it.